The cake arrived late, which should have been my first clue. Everything else had been placed with ceremonial care, the good plates pulled from the cabinet, the cousins seated according to age and comfort. My mother hovering with a smile that never quite reached her eyes. The cake came last, carried in like an afterthought, its pink frosting smoothed too perfectly, the name piped in looping cursive that belonged to someone else's child. I noticed the details because I always did. The order of things mattered in my family. Who was seen first, who was offered seconds, who was asked about school or work or health. I'd learned early to read the room as a map, to know where I stood before anyone said it out loud. My daughter sat beside me, feet swinging, palms flat on the table. She was wearing a dress she'd insisted on choosing herself, yellow, a little wrinkled from the car. She'd been excited all morning, not for cake exactly, but for the permission to clap when candles appeared. My dad waited until everyone was watching. He cleared his throat, eyes bright, that familiar grin already in place. "All right," he said, tapping the knife against the plate. "Cakes for the real grandkids." It landed the way a dropped glass lands, too loud, too sudden. There was a beat, a half laugh from someone who didn't know what else to do. My mother made a noise like she'd meant to say something and changed her mind. The knife paused mid-air. My daughter froze, not crying, not asking questions, just still. Her shoulders tightened, her eyes flicked to the cake, then to me, then back to the table as if she were trying to locate the rules she'd missed. I turned toward her, already forming words. I didn't know which ones yet, only that they needed to be simple and firm and protective. I felt the old reflex rise in me, the one that said, "Don't escalate. Don't embarrass. Handle it later." It was the same reflex that had kept me quiet at my own birthdays, my own tables. Before I could speak, my husband stood up. He did it slowly, deliberately, the legs of his chair scraping just enough to be heard. He picked up his glass, not raised high, not dramatic, just enough to claim the space. The room shifted before he said anything. You could feel people recalculating, unsure whether to smile or look away. He waited, let the silence stretch. Then he spoke, his voice even almost conversational. "I want to make something very clear," he said. No one interrupted him. My dad's grin faltered, then reset. He continued, eyes moving calmly around the table, not accusatory, just inclusive, as if he were addressing a meeting. "This child," he placed his hand gently on my daughter's shoulder, "is my daughter. She's not a category. She's not a joke, and she doesn't audition for belonging." My daughter leaned into his hand without looking up. He took a breath steady. If anyone at this table thinks affection is conditional, or that cruelty can pass as humor, that's their choice. But it won't happen around her. And if it does, we'll leave. Every time the word leave landed differently, not as a threat, as a plan. He raised his glass a fraction higher. "So if cake is only for some grandchildren," he said, still calm, "we'll get dessert somewhere else, and we won't argue about it." For a moment, no one moved. Then panic arrived, not loud, not explosive, but unmistakable. My mother rushed forward with a knife, slicing hurriedly, frosting smearing. "Of course she gets cake," she said too quickly. "He was just kidding." Someone laughed again. My dad's face flushed, then tightened. "I didn't mean." My husband nodded once. "Good," he said. "Then we're aligned." He sat back down, picked up his fork. The room didn't recover its rhythm. Conversations restarted in smaller pockets. The cake was served to everyone, but the ceremony was gone. No candles, no singing. The frosting tasted overly sweet, like it had been rushed. I watched my daughter take her first bite. She smiled small and relieved, and that was enough to steady me. Later in the car, she asked quietly, "Why did Grandpa say that?" I chose my words carefully. "Sometimes grown-ups say things that aren't kind," I said. "And it's our job to stop that when it happens," she nodded, satisfied. She trusted us. The simplicity of that trust made my chest ache. The consequences didn't arrive all at once. They came in adjustments. Invitations that softened in tone, then thinned. Stories retold with us edited out. My parents tried to regain ground with explanations that circled the same point. You misunderstood. You're too sensitive. We didn't mean it like that. What they didn't do was say it again. Not in front of us. My dad avoided my husband for a while, then became overly polite. My mother offered snacks and compliments in equal measure, as if abundance might smooth the fracture. The favoritism didn't disappear. It just lost its ease. It had to work harder now, and that made it visible. I felt a complicated mix of gratitude and grief. Gratitude that my husband had stepped in without hesitation. Grief that this was what it took. That protection had to arrive from outside the family I grew up in. I noticed changes in myself too. How my shoulders dropped a little when we entered rooms. How I stopped scanning faces for approval. How I understood finally that silence had never been neutrality. It had been consent. We didn't celebrate what happened. There was no victory speech. No final reckoning. There was just a line drawn and held. A week later, we took our daughter for ice cream on a Tuesday afternoon. No occasion at all. She chose sprinkles. She laughed with her whole body. I watched her eat messy and unafraid and thought about maps, how one moment can redraw them quietly, permanently. Not everything was healed, but something essential had been protected, and that I knew would last.